Good evening tonight. Thanks for joining us. Only on this program, Stormy Daniels' attorney speaking out with what he says is one more piece of evidence potentially tying the president to a payoff for porn star Stormy Daniels. That's in addition to the evidence he produced this morning. But before we go any further, just a quick reminder of something we said on the program last night. This is about the payoff, not the alleged affair. We're following the money and who knew about it. Marital infidelity, if it happened, is certainly nothing new, not for millions of Americans, not for presidents, and not for Donald Trump, whose love life has been tabloid fodder, some of which he stoked himself as publicist John Miller or John Barron for decades. It's not new for Washington, D.C. either. R's do it, D's do it, even educated fleas do it. What most Republicans, Democrats, or fleas for that matter, do not do is pay to hush it up. So we begin tonight keeping them honest by continuing to follow the money, or trying to at least, and examining the claims made by President Trump's go-to fix-it guy, Michael Cohen, personal attorney to the president, and before that to Donald Trump, candidate and private citizen. Michael Cohen, Trump Organization employee. Now remember, when the story broke, Attorney Cohen put out the following statement, quote, "Neither the Trump Organization nor the Trump campaign was a party to the transaction with Ms. Clifford and neither reimbursed me for the payment, either directly or indirectly. The payment to Ms. Clifford was lawful and was not a campaign contribution or a campaign expenditure by anyone. $130,000, 11 days before the election, in exchange for Stormy Daniels' silence about the affair she says she had with Donald Trump back in 2006. $130,000 of his own money, Cohen claims, which today he said he raised from a home equity credit line. Nothing to do with the Trump Organization, nothing he told the candidate about, no money from Trump or the campaign, just his own money from his own pocket." Here's how CNN chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin assessed those claims.
Lawyers don't do that. They don't do that with their own money. It's not ethical. It's not proper to do that without talking to the client, and it also just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's one thing if he just was such a billionaire, he had $130,000 sitting around, but the idea that he goes into a home equity line and then writes the check and just does it out of the goodness of his heart, it's just unbelievable.
Also potentially not ethical, Michael Cohen saying that he entered into an agreement on his client's behalf, but claims not to have actually informed his client about it at all. And keeping him honest, even if everything Michael Cohen claims is true, that he did this out of loyalty to Donald Trump with borrowed money using his own home as collateral, how do you explain the Wall Street Journal report that he'd been complaining to friends about not being reimbursed? The question, of course, is reimbursed for what, by whom? Cohen sent a two-word statement to the Journal on their story, fake news, he said. This morning, though, in connection with the lawsuit to invalidate the non-disclosure agreement Stormy Daniels signed, her attorney produced emails to and from Michael Cohen using his Trump Organization address. What they show are a bank sending Michael Cohen at his Trump Organization email address this note saying, "The funds have been deposited into your checking account." And Michael Cohen forwarding that message to Stormy Daniels' attorney, but forwarding it from a personal email account in an email that appears to include the corporate email account the bank originally sent their confirmation to. All of this to handle the payoff on candidate Trump's behalf just 11 days before the election. So the question, did Donald Trump know about the business Michael Cohen was conducting in an effort to bury a potentially damaging late October surprise? And does it violate campaign finance or any other laws? Now, we don't know tonight, nor is the White House saying much. Here's Press Secretary Sarah Sanders today.
We've addressed this extensively, and I don't have anything else to add.
Now, if that sounds familiar, there's very good reason why. Here she is on Wednesday.
Look, the president has addressed these directly and made very well clear that none of these allegations are true.
So keep them honest. The one thing neither she nor the president nor anyone at the White House has done is address the allegations either directly or extensively. In fact, it's the one thing they have not done. As for Michael Cohen, he's spoken out several times today and this evening, something we'll talk about with our first guest. So with all that as backdrop, Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' attorney, joins us now. Thanks so much for being with us. First of all, you've just given us a new document that you believe is significant. Can you explain what it is?
Absolutely, Anderson, and thanks for having me on tonight. This is a yet another email that shows that throughout this negotiation period, this period during which Attorney Cohen was negotiating on the president's behalf.
With Stormy Daniels, then attorney.
That's correct. That during this entire time period, he was routinely using his email address at the Trump Organization and his email signature block to identify that he was effectively doing this on behalf of the Trump organization.
So what we have on the screen, this is a new email that you're just given us tonight, which is from Michael Cohen, again, using his Trump organization email address and describing himself as an emissary of Donald Trump.
That's absolutely correct. And I think one of the things that is critically important about this email, Anderson, if you look at the email, the last email in the string, it talks about how the office is closed for Yom Kippur.
The Trump organization offices.
That is correct. And Anderson, if I could just set the stage relating to this email, this in mid-October was around the time period that the payment was to be made. It ultimately was not made, and the deal fell apart for a while, and then ultimately was resurrected, and the payment was made in late October. This email relates to the first payment, the first date, I should say, of the payment, in mid-October. Now, why is this important, the reference to Yom Kippur and the office? Because it appears to be rather innocuous when you look at it. And we assert actually that it's not innocuous, because if in fact the payment was being made personally by Attorney Cohen, he wouldn't need his office open in order to effectuate the payment.
And clearly the office he's talking about is the Trump organization office, which is on the letterhead and is underneath his signature.
That is the office he's clearly referring to, because if you look at the signature, and you've put it up on the screen, he identifies himself as the Executive Vice President and Special Counsel to Donald J. Trump, and he lists the address. That's the office.
And this was an email he sent to the attorney basically around the time explaining why the money hadn't yet been sent.
That is correct. And look, if this was a personal transaction, as your viewers know, when you're conducting personal business, you don't have to go to your office to conduct personal business. You can do it from your home. You can do it on your cell phone. There's any number of places.
In fact, if the office is closed, you probably have more time to conduct your personal business.
Exactly.
This is actually now, this is a brand new document that you just released. Earlier today, you released email correspondence, again, between Mr. Cohen and his bank and the attorney for Stormy Daniels. Just explain this email, because it's a little confusing, but it's sort of, I mean, you say it's very significant.
We believe it's pivotal for the following reason. The initial email in the string, which is at the bottom of the page, is an email exchange between a representative of First Republic Bank to Mr. Cohen, alerting him to the fact that they have effectively carried out his wishes and transferred money from one account at First Republic to a checking account at First Republic. He turns around then and forwards that email to himself.
And so that email from the bank was sent to his Trump organization email account?
Absolutely, and your viewers can see it on the screen. He then turns around and forwards that to his personal email account, which is the next email in the string. Above that, what's being shown on the screen right now.
So that's being shown on the screen basically says that the money is in the account?
Correct. It's from the bank employee to Mr. Cohen.
And why would Michael Cohen then feel the need to forward that email to himself, to his private email address, to then communicate with Stormy Daniels' attorney?
I don't have an explanation for it, quite honestly, because if there was nothing to hide in connection with this email string, then Mr. Cohen could have forwarded this email directly to Mr. Davidson and would not have had to take the interim step of going to his personal email account. What we believe happened, and this is speculation, but I think it's pretty good speculation, is that he sent it to his personal email address. He was then going to send it from his personal email address to Mr. Davidson, but he forgot to delete the middle portion of the email that showed that the communication had taken place with his email at the Trump organization.
So Michael Cohen, as you know, he's gone on the offensive today. He's said some things about you. He said, but about this, he says, in part, quote, I send emails from the Trump org email address to my family, friends, as well as Trump business emails. I basically use it for everything. I'm certain most people can relate.
I can relate. I mean, I often use personal or business emails for personal business. I don't think that's that unusual, but what's unusual is the routing of the email to his personal email account and then making sure to send it from his personal email account to Mr. Davidson.
So big picture, the reason all of this you believe is so important is because Michael Cohen has come forward very clearly and said, look, this was something I did out of loyalty. I used this, and today saying that it came from his home equity line, that this had nothing to do with the Trump organization. We still don't know where the money came from. What do you make of his contention that it actually came from his home equity line?
There's a word in Italian, and the word is basta, and it means in English, enough. Basta. We have heard explanation upon explanation. They are ever changing. It's nonsense. I'm running out of superlatives. Your legal analyst is running out of superlatives. Your guest on other networks. We are all out of superlatives. Nonsense, ridiculous, preposterous, ludicrous. The list goes on and on. We are out of words to describe what Mr. Cohen is trying to sell to the American public. Anderson, it is impossible. It is so out of the realm of possibility that this attorney undertook all of this work. And I want to be clear about something. This NDA took a while to negotiate, draft.
The non-disclosure agreement.
The non-disclosure agreement. This was not something that gets done in 30 minutes. This is something, it took hours. It's a detailed document. This is why some people hate attorneys, because they have to go through documents and they spend so much time looking at documents like this and spending so much time and usually billing their client for the time they spend. This took a long time. The negotiation, the drafting, the communication, the routing of the payment. We're talking about hours and hours and hours. And what Mr. Cohen and the administration now expects the American public to believe is that he went off half-cocked on his own without any guidance or communication whatsoever with his client. None. He just decided that he was going to do this. He was going to draft the document, he was going to negotiate it, and he was going to draft the document with places for his client to sign.
Which again, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that if somebody is making a contract in which I'm named and they're having other people sign it and they're signing it and they're representing themselves as representing me and I don't even know about the document, that seems highly unethical.
It is highly unethical.
It's completely unethical.
It's highly unethical, and it can result in what we call within the industry getting your ticket stamped. And what that means is you lose your license.
Michael Cohen also, the White House has said, look, the president's attorney won in arbitration in California. That you say Michael Cohen set up this arbitration just kind of very quickly. You weren't informed, Stormy Daniels wasn't informed, and that they got a ruling that you say is invalid. Did you not know that Michael Cohen was doing this arbitration?
Anderson, this arbitration has so many problems, I don't even think we could describe them all in the hour that we have, but I'm going to take a shot to describe a few of them. First of all, the arbitration was brought not in Donald Trump's name, but in the LLC name that Attorney Cohen had set up. Right. That's improper. The LLC did not have the right or the ability, and in legal terms it's called standing, to proceed with the arbitration. So first of all, you got the wrong party. Second of all, in order to proceed in the arbitration, Mr. Cohen was required by the bar rules of California to be a licensed attorney in California or to have a licensed attorney as what is called local counsel. He did neither. That's a misdemeanor under the law.
So wait, Michael Cohen isn't licensed to practice law in California?
There is nothing indicating that he is. We haven't been able to find any record of him being licensed in California. And if he wasn't licensed in California, that's a misdemeanor to be practicing law in California. It's no different, Anderson, than if I came to New York or Washington, D.C. and attempted to practice law. I'm not licensed in those jurisdictions. So that's the second problem with the arbitration. I could go on.
I want to just ask you, we got to take a break, but when we come back, I want to ask you that the bank itself, when they received the $130,000 that was then going to be moved to given to Stormy Daniels' attorney, they raised a red flag. They raised something called a SAR, which is a suspicious activity report. I want to ask you about that because, again, the question is, where did this money come from? We're going to take a quick break. The conversation continues along with our own legal panel. Later, we're talking with Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' attorney, about the money his client got from Donald Trump's personal and corporate attorney, Michael Cohen. Cohen claims he paid it out of his own pocket from a home equity line of credit. That is what he said today. And today, Mr. Avenatti revealed that Cohen used his Trump corporate email account during the transaction, something Mr. Cohen also confirmed today and is very much downplaying. Just moments ago, Mr. Avenatti showed us a new email from Michael Cohen referring the office being closed for Yom Kippur, suggesting that if Michael Cohen truly were doing this all on his own, the office being open or closed would not be relevant. So back again with Michael Avenatti. So one of the things I don't think that's gotten a lot of attention again, our focus really is sort of following the money. And just for full disclosure, I should say that I have met with, I've talked with your client for 60 minutes. There was something called a SAR report when the bank, I guess it was First National, received $130,000. Was it First National?
First Republic.
First Republic, sorry. When they got the $130,000 from Mr. Cohen, who says it's from a home equity line of credit, the bank, it was something called, there was a suspicious activity report put out. Can you explain what that means and why $130,000 would have triggered a suspicious activity report?
There are Treasury regulations in the United States that are in place to guard against money laundering and financial crimes. And these regulations hold that when a bank determines that a particular financial transaction or series of transactions is suspicious, they are obligated under the law to prepare and file what is called a suspicious activity report, otherwise known as a SAR. What we know from the prior reporting in this case is that at some point after the date of this transaction, in late 2016, First Republic Bank prepared a SAR, a suspicious activity report, relating to this transaction, relating to the payment of the $130,000. They transmitted that SAR to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, otherwise known as FinCEN. It's a division of the U.S. Treasury. Now, we don't know what happened after that point. Very often, FinCEN will disregard the SARs. Sometimes they'll investigate them. Sometimes they'll send them to the FBI for further investigation. We don't know what that SAR shows because it's not public information. But here's what we do know. We know that the president and his appointee, the Treasury Secretary, control FinCEN. They could very easily release this SAR. And in fact, if Mr. Cohen does not have an objection to it, if he doesn't believe anything was untoward about this, if his story is to be believed, then release the SAR. It's a fairly brief document, but it's going to be very illuminating as to the details relating to this transaction. And if there's nothing to hide, release the SAR and let the American people see what happened here. And if there's nothing there, then there's nothing there.
I sense release the SAR is going to be your new rallying cry.
I think it's pretty simple. It's a very straightforward document.
So let me just get this straight, though. The bank that we've been seeing the emails from that Michael Cohen had from one account moved into this other account, which he said was from his equity line of credit, that's the bank that said that this was something was suspicious?
That is correct. That email that was on the screen earlier from First Republic Bank, the email that was sent to Mr. Cohen at his Trump Organization address, saying the money has now been placed in this new account from which it was ultimately wired to Ms. Daniels' attorney. That's the bank that prepared the SAR, transmitted it to FinCEN, a division of the U.S. Treasury, and we want it released.
Mr. Cohen said a lot today. He has not addressed this notion, again, of potentially unethical behavior of claiming to represent his client in an agreement with Stormy Daniels without his client's knowledge. I mean, he went after you today. He said that you clearly allowed your 15 minutes of fame to affect your ludicrous conclusions. How Mr. Avenatti or the media at large believes this to be breaking news is a mystery to me. He should either evacuate the room he's standing in or immediately seek the attention of an ENT doctor.
Well, fortunately, I'm a little under the weather, but I don't think I need a doctor. And second of all, I've been very fortunate in my career, Anderson, over the last 18 years. I think I exhausted my 15 minutes maybe 14 or 16 years ago. But separate and apart from that, I'm not going to respond to his personal attacks. I want to keep this about the facts, and I want to keep it about the truth, because, Anderson, quite honestly, I don't care if you're on the left or on the right or in the middle. The American people deserve straight talk, not spin, on this issue. They deserve facts. They deserve the truth. They deserve evidence. This is not complicated. The questions are simple. Did Mr. Trump know about the negotiation of this agreement? Did he know about the payment? Did he sign the document? Did he facilitate or pay the money, or did he have somebody else pay the money? And what was that relationship? This could be cleared up very, very simply. And quite honestly, I don't know why it hasn't been cleared up. Release the SAR, answer the questions, let the American people decide.
All right, we've got to take a quick break. We'll come back with our panel. Mark Garagos and others. We'll be right back.